Hey folks, David Frost, my strategic forecast. I got a few questions on the Nasdaq, and some folks wanted to know, my take on support levels for the Nasdaq and what was in store for the Nasdaq. And as you know, I always talk about the spider primarily because basically everything goes off the spider. All markets, for in large part, trade together, but I know there's some folks that like to trade the Nasdaq and thinking that, and they're rightfully so, that if the market was going to pull back some, that you might get some more downside reaction off the Nasdaq than some other markets because of the nature of what's inside the Nasdaq, the high-tech market, and a lot of things that were inflated over the last several years may pull the Nasdaq down in a faster or more forceful manner with more velocity. So I thought that was a good question. So I thought I would do is I would take a look at the Nasdaq Composite and give you some what I thought were some support levels that you can probably trade to. So first, let's take a look at where we are today, and it looks very much like the spider chart. In fact, all markets, for the most part, trade together. But on the downside, if the market is going to come down with any significant velocity, I do agree that the Nasdaq will probably come down faster and harder than the S&P and the Dow. So here are our current levels of support, if you will, or pardon me, resistance. And right now, or you see, support becomes resistance, resistance becomes support. So right now we're resting on about 46.50, give or take, and that's what we hit on Friday, or we came close to on Friday and kind of bounced off that level. And on the upside, the next level of resistance is going to be about 47.62. And then if we continue higher, if we do get a bounce in this market, then we're going to see resistance at 48.77. And that coincides with some of the same levels that you've heard me talk about in the SPY index or the spider index. But let's take a look at a longer term picture and what would happen if the market did come down. So I put down some, on the green lines would be your major levels of support, and the purple trend lines would be minor levels of support, yet also important to note. And so let's just discuss them real briefly. So the first area is something we came short of when the market came down in August, which is 42.40. That's going to be a big level. So you could expect the market to maybe find some support at that level, although since we did come close, there's a likelihood, depending on how the market comes down into that level and with what velocity, it may cut through there pretty rapidly. But the next area of support, which would be somewhat minor, would be about the 41.16 level, which is this former pivot low here. And all this, what's called chart vibration, and this is where prior support becomes resistance and resistance becomes support. The market is telling you that because we had a consolidation in this area, that this price level is important. And you also had consolidation in this area here. So that's going to be prior, support because it was prior breakout point and consolidation points in the market. The next area, again, another consolidation point is here, okay, at around 39.46. We can round it to 39.50. And you also had a nice pivot low here, and the market reacted off this pivot low before it consolidated higher. So this is going to be another level of support here. And then you're going to have a major level of support at about 37.17. And of course, that's give or take, some points, but this is what the mathematics told me. So I'm putting it on the chart as the math deems so. 37.17. This is going to be a very, very large level of support. You're also going to find some at the 200 period moving average here. And then also the last area of defense here is going to be about 32.40. You can see a prior breakout point where the market consolidated here. Also, this is another area where the math told me it was very important. So all that being said, hopefully it's helpful for the Nasdaq Composite and the folks that like to trade in the Nasdaq Composite. I got some questions, and I thought they were good questions. Can you review the Nasdaq? So I thought, why not? Let's do it. It's just a couple of minutes, and hopefully it's helpful to those that want to trade the Nasdaq. I'm David Frost, mystrategicforecast.com. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Nasdaq Composite Index Analysis.